We've covered a lot of canceled or rejected pieces of media on this channel through our Rejected Media series, whether that be movies, specific scenes, or even video games, but very few projects are as disappointing as the cancellation of Star Wars 1313. Though not as renowned as the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise, it's still not a story the Jedi at Disney would tell you. Today I'm here with Alex from Podcast Now. He's a good friend of mine who's going to be helping me take a look at what happened with Star Wars 1313. Alex has a main channel and a secondary channel where he makes actually fantastic content and keeps everyone up to date with entertainment news, so please be sure to check out his stuff in the description down below. It is fantastic. Thanks for being here, Alex.
Thank you so much for having me, man, and I'm very excited to talk about what you said is truly a tragedy for Star Wars games, for gaming in general.
It's really sad. Star Wars 1313 was in development at Lucasarts back before Disney actually acquired the Star Wars property from George Lucas, and this game was revealed all the way back in 2012. They had been working on it before that, and was a third-person action-adventure game that put players in the shoes of an unnamed bounty hunter who was described as having a sense of honor, and who would discover a criminal plot on Coruscant while exploring the underbelly of the planet. However, it was later actually revealed that there was already troubled development to the game long before Disney even entered the picture, as George Lucas pushed for this game to be reworked as a Boba Fett focused game and had the project scrapped and reworked several times throughout its development. The studio later decided to have that unnamed bounty hunter character killed off early in the story, revealing a twist that the game was actually a Boba Fett game taking place on Coruscant on level 1313 of the city.
Then LucasArts president Paul Megan said of 1313, Star Wars 1313 dives into a part of the Star Wars mythos that we've always known existed but never had a chance to visit. It was also described by a team as similar to Dante's Inferno for Star Wars, as a player would descend into the criminal underworld of Coruscant.
Star Wars 1313 is a game about being a bounty hunter in the most dangerous place in the galaxy, 1313. 1313 is this location beneath the surface of Coruscant, and it's where the criminal underworld in the Star Wars galaxy lives.
As you head down and you realize, all of the sunlight's going away, it's getting cooler, it's getting darker. It starts to seat the player into this darker world.
It's like a way that we can take the player from the Star Wars that they know to this completely new world.
In every city, you've got the bad part of town. Well, this is a city that's made up of the bad part of town. You picture the Vegas Strip. This is the old Vegas kind of approach to a Star Wars city.
In the original film, it's very clear who the good guys and the bad guys were, but the characters in our world are definitely more in the gray area in Star Wars that we've not seen before. 1313 is kind of a world where these crime families can exist and definitely thrive under the Empire.
That love and dedication to the world itself is such an important part of the formula, particularly when you're dealing with Star Wars.
Before being known primarily for his swift and avid use of the Twitter block button, my favorite person on the internet, Jason Schreier, a journalist who wrote for Kotaku, spoke to inside sources that worked on the game who shared there was always a danger of cancellation or the game never coming out. They said they ended up with movie tech that wouldn't fit in a game and game tech that wouldn't fit in a movie. 1313 was always in danger of not being made.
In 2012, Dominic Robillard, which I probably messed up his name, again, we're going back to the having to introduce sign language so that I don't mess up names on this channel anymore. He was the creative director at LucasArts. He told IGN, the danger of this world needs to live in the moment-to-moment gameplay. And so we've got mechanics that are about a character who's limited by the range of human ability. And the extraordinary things you get to do are very much based around this bounty hunter gear and the gadgets. But ultimately, he's honorable in a way that I think is easier to relate to. One thing I think that's uncertain about this game is whether that sense of honor that Dominic talked about would have been transferred to Boba Fett, as this interview was actually given before the meeting with Lucas that caused the game to be completely reworked to focus on Fett, instead of this unnamed bounty hunter original character that the LucasArts team had been excited to make. Unfortunately, following multiple hiccups and restarts behind the scenes, Star Wars 1313 was inevitably canceled when Disney shut down LucasArts in 2013. The failure of 1313 is often attributed to Disney solely, but it's also important to note that the game had so many issues behind the scenes prior to its cancellation, and that George Lucas interfering with this project in an already difficult development process and forcing the team to restart the game yet again wasn't actually very helpful either. Following a LucasArts shutdown, the project was never picked back up or shifted to another developer, which is actually likely due to the projected M-rated subject matter of the game, despite there actually being workable and usable gameplay that was released later on by a YouTube channel called The Vault. Disney said in their official statement of LucasArts, after evaluating our position in the games market, we've decided to shift LucasArts from an internal development to a licensing model, minimizing the company's risk while achieving a broader portfolio of quality Star Wars games. As a result of this change, we've had layoffs across the organization. We are incredibly appreciative and proud of the talented teams who have been developing our new titles. Worth mentioning, by the way, at the end there, this is when it transferred to EA and all we got was unfinished garbage, and Fallen Order, surprisingly, it got made. I can't believe it. Their one really good game before they basically lost that license again and it went back to other developers. Alex, this is something that's really frustrating. I think there's a lot of stuff for us to take a look at here, but I guess I just kind of want to ask you, because I talked more than you so far, what do you think about this whole situation?
Yeah, it's tough. It's something that you would have liked to see, I get disappointed for any game, whether it's a game that I'm like interested, or even movie, I'd argue, anything that I'm interested in or not interested in. It's like I at least want to see, because these stories are always so cool. You know what I mean? Like, what are the tales of these projects that are in the works that never see the light of day? So just kind of the mystery aspect alone is something that I think always speaks to at least people like you and me, right? For sure. But also I think general people too, right? It's like what could have been, and this is a good example. This is like a duo thing with the other Star Wars game. You and I have talked about the Amy Hennig game, and both of these games are tragic. These are both what seemed like legitimate, AAA. These would have been maybe franchise starters, and neither of them. And now different time periods, different people overseeing it. Like you had said, this one isn't so easy to blame one person or one entity, right? Both of them really had that problem, so it sucks. And like you said, and even the last little part, right after this, it just went to, well, let's pick who we think works well with our values, and that happens to be EA. And while I actually like EA now, and I think they kind of have like an underdog story to them, I really believe that. Back then was obviously the dark ages of EA, and you couldn't have given it, I think, to a worse company at the time. I think they're doing well now, but they weren't back then. So yeah, it's almost more disappointing that this project wasn't picked up. It wasn't given to somebody else. EA didn't pick it up. And then, instead of them continuing making games themselves, they pick others to do it for them.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's interesting is actually how much concept art came out of this project. Now, obviously, the timeline is muddied because we only have, looks at the things that have been leaked. Also, various stories and leaked sources to different gaming journalist outlets and stuff like that. But one of the things I find interesting about this is they had a character that they were excited to make, which I think you could tell in the development interviews. They talked about this character, which we never actually, I don't believe, got a name for. That unnamed bounty hunter who was going to have a sense of honor and everything. They showed him off in the original footage, and there's always been a misconception in this story. Some people thought, oh, that was Boba Fett the whole time. It actually wasn't. That was going to be their Cal Kestis type, the character from Fallen Order, an original character that they were able to insert into Star Wars and work with. Now, no one said this, but, certainly after you have George Lucas come in and say, get rid of that character and make it about Boba Fett, that has to be a little disheartening for the team, because that was the character that they cared about and talked about in those interviews, and now they were going to just kill him off and move to Boba Fett. It's interesting to me how much concept art, though, actually made it off the ground and was finished for Boba Fett. Like, this game, it wasn't just canceled when that rework was ordered. We actually did get playable alpha footage. We didn't get to play it, but it was leaked to the internet. We did see full concept arts of Boba Fett in Jango's armor, or a reworked version of Jango's armor. He very clearly has, the Jango helmet, the shoulder pieces, no chest piece, but he does have the knee pads in one picture, and then in another picture, he actually has pretty much the whole setup. So it's interesting to see that they did get pretty far with the Boba Fett angle as well with this. It just never actually materialized. It seems like a project that was just reworked and bogged down by problems so many times throughout its development that if it hadn't been, it very well could have released before LucasArts was shut down. But you had delay after
ran out of time, basically.
Yeah, you had delay after delay after delay, and then LucasArts was shut down when they were partway through the rework. The quote that you read that was really interesting was that this was always in danger of not being made, and how they had created these really cool imaginative gadgets, but different people thought they didn't fit in the timeline of the movies, and then other people thought they were too advanced for the game. And so you kind of ended up with almost an Iron Man situation where they were trying to limit what this character could do, but it seems like they were having a hard time doing it during development.
Yeah, Schreier's quotes it is pretty interesting. Normally now he does, his stories are a little bit different than back then. But yeah, and that's a tough thing too, right? Because you can mess it up. You can maybe create something that you think is cool, but then maybe diehard fans, right, point out or whatever. So, like, I guess it makes sense. And we've gone kind of through, I think, different eras of how much different parts of the studios care about, following anything that's happened before, right? We've heard stories, I think even back in Battlefront 2 times of, there's like emails and like you have to send things to different departments to get the okay before you can implement it or before you can start. So it used to be, I think, more bogged down, including during this time, right? So I assume, number one, that slowed it down from the beginning, like before even George, stepped in. And then, yeah, like, the alpha that we got from the vault, it's pretty, I wouldn't say done, but like you give them a couple years, probably like 2, and the game's probably ready. So like you said, what's sad is if they didn't shut them down, we probably could have got a Boba Fett game like 2 years later. And then if all the stuff before that didn't happen, we would have gotten it, like you said, before Disney even bought them, right? So we would have had it before that. So it was bad timing. It was bad timing. It was people making some different mistakes. And, it's a game, I think you can look back at that. E3, I think, was the trailer for, right? The original trailer. Like, people were pumped. So I wish, and it would have done well, I think, even in a time period like right now. I think people's desire for it would be even more right now, but guess it is what it is.
Yeah, I also do want to add that one thing that frustrates me is that, despite ragging a little bit on George's interference with this, his idea was actually also good in a sense that it almost made this a sequel to something like Star Wars Bounty Hunter, which a lot of people might forget, but that was a game that was re-released on the PlayStation 2 on PlayStation 4 a service that barely got done. They had promised a lot of PS2 games coming to the PS4 through emulator, and I think we got like 50 or something, but it's something. A handful of Star Wars games actually came to that, and one of them was Bounty Hunter, which focuses on Django going throughout different worlds, capturing targets, stuff like that. This game, from the concept art, along with the original playable footage and the alpha footage later on with Boba, it does seem almost like, at the very least, a spiritual successor to that idea that would have modernized Bounty Hunter and taken it forward with the technology they had, which is frustrating because also what they talked about with this, the whole criminal underbelly of Star Wars, right? This stuff, the M-rated stuff that we don't get to see. I mean, at the end of the day, people pretend that there's not, but Star Wars is a world where there's a lot of bad things that happen. I mean, not just kids being slaughtered in Order 66, which they are not afraid to show in the movie, but, spice trading and drugs and prostitution and gambling and all this other stuff. These are all real crimes and things that exist in the world of Star Wars. It's just that Star Wars often shies away from showing that kind of side of itself because it's aimed to, at the very least, be accessible to younger audiences in most projects, especially since Disney came in. One of the frustrating things I think about this is, while I don't know if necessarily you would ever need a rated R Star Wars movie, this was going to be projected to be a rated M project that really got into that more mature side of Star Wars and offered a different look at it, which I don't think we had really seen a lot of since a project like Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2, which didn't become M, but it really did look into more of the dark philosophy side of Star Wars and the Force and some of these other bad things going on in the universe. It wasn't afraid of that. It's a little frustrating now to see that we could have really seen that. It would have been decanonized anyways, I guess, to Legends, but they were so close to greatness.
I agree. It's a sad tale, and I've told you this off camera too. Like I'm more like engraved in the Amy Hennig one more than this, but this at the time, it's also probably because I wasn't so online, with this one as I was with Amy Hennig's, where this was a big deal, at the time of when it was first shown. at that E3. Like, people were super into it, and this was a huge blow when it was canceled and nobody really, had any idea, and everything was kind of happening so fast. So while it's not the one I'm the most into of the two Star Wars games, both of them, like I said, both of them easily could have worked. Both of them could have started off, well, the Amy Hennig one was supposed to be a trilogy. I'd imagine this one was supposed to be a start of something as well. And so, it just sucks that we never got to see it happen, because I think it would have worked in even if this came out 2014, 2015, Uncharted 4 came out 2016. I think it would, it's in the right time period. I think people would have taken to it really easily.
It's very unfortunate. It is similar to the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise, memes aside. Well, that's about all we have for today on this project. It's very, very unfortunate. And I do want to say, speaking of that Amy Hennig Uncharted-like Star Wars experience, it's interesting because that is actually a upcoming Rejected Media we are going to do. I'm not sure if it's going to be the next one, and there might be a few in between here, but in the near future, Alex is going to be back with me for that, because that's another collaboration I want to do with him, because that's something he is super duper passionate about. And Alex actually covers all kinds of stuff over on Podcast Now and Podcast Now Plus. Those are his two channels, so I highly recommend you check them out. If you like my channel, I really do think you'll like his. All the people in the comments saying, like, why didn't you cover this news? Why didn't you get to this thing? Why are you not talking about this new thing? Alex is, like, consistently on top of those, okay? He is like me, but if I actually cared to keep up. So he does a really, really good job with all the stuff he talks about and really breaking news and getting stuff out there. And he's starting to do more video essay type videos as well that are similar to the stuff we've done on this channel. So his channels are very quality. I will leave those in the descriptions down below. But Alex, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, and I appreciate the kind words. And I'm saying this coming as a fan. I mean, these are fantastic videos you do, and the deep dives into it. So I think you're doing fantastic, and it was an honor to be here, and I can't wait for the next one.
I really appreciate it, man. Yeah, this is one of my favorite series that we do. Even when we don't have all the information, it's super interesting to look back at what we do know and speculate and see what could have been. I love it, but it's also extremely depressing. So to see something like this not get made and then see Squadrons get made. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Please be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this. Subscribe for more content. Over here, Rejected Media is a series that we do very frequently, and also Alex's channels, like I said, description down below. Fantastic guy and legitimately one of my best friends in real life, not just someone I work with on YouTube. So check him out. Fantastic dude. Have a fantastic day, everybody, and as always, stay shui.